Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Expansive CEO podcast. I am your host, Hannah Chapman. And today we're going to dive into a lot of emotional talk. We're going to really get deep with the emotion of anger and get to understand it and understand how to express it and why it's so important and how to then use that super powerful energy of anger in our lives and in our work and in our business. And to do that, I'm super excited. I have an awesome guest here today. His name is Alan Muellegger, and he's an emotional fitness trainer. So that's why we're going to dive into this topic. And he has over a decade of experience helping high impact leaders perform at their absolute best. He teaches emotional fitness, the next evolutionary wave of emotional intelligence that wires leaders for peak emotional performance for the moments that it matters most. Alan, thank you so much for being here today. I know when we first connected, we talked about creating the space for, when you're at your peak, you have to be at your peak, rather. You have a performance, literally, you're on stage, you're in that like crunch time, being able to have the emotional regulation for that moment is when it's most important, right? And that's where most people fall apart if they haven't done this work. So, thank you so much for being here. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about why this matters and why you've gone in this direction.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and I just also appreciate your invitation here, and also really impressed by your memory on that. It was like when you said, "Yeah, I remember our conversation," and in my brain, I was like, "Do I remember our conversation?" And then you was like, "I was like, all right, she's on it." So I just acknowledge you for that. It's really beautiful. Yeah, for me, emotional fitness, it's been a journey of really trying to. I've been doing this work for so long, but really calling it emotional fitness was a recent thing. The truth was is that the development of emotional fitness came from me and my own journey of really having what I would consider an overwhelming amount of emotions that I did not know how to use. I grew up in a very traditional kind of Midwestern upbringing where there's really only one emotion that's acceptable to experience, and that's good, good and fine. Everything's good, and so it's like, how you doing? I'm good. How are you doing? Good. How was that? How was the game last night? It was good. How's your job? Good. Like everything's good. And so for me, that was not my experience. I was like feeling freaking amazing or awful, and neither of which were emotions that were, I would say, acceptable in a social context to be experiencing. And so there was this period of time where I spent a lot of my life trying to look a certain way for others and fill the molds that I thought everybody else wanted me to be. Meanwhile, the inside of my body, there were all these very loud voices screaming. And when I say voices, I don't mean like people talking, but I mean like just different emotions that were all over the place. And my head would go one way, but my heart would want me to go another. And there was a huge incongruence, which ultimately led me to this place where I was listening to my head so much so that I built a life that was probably the most incongruent, misaligned life that I could have possibly created. I had all the things that the American dream says we should have. You know, the solid income, passive revenue streams. I had a apartment in California, was married, had all the things, taking, nice trips to Hawaii and Napa Valley and all that. But truly on the inside, I was absolutely miserable. And it was because a coping strategy or mechanism that I developed in order to create success in life was to disconnect from my emotional intelligence altogether,
Yeah.
because it was just too overwhelming and no one really taught me how to actually use it. But then it all kind of came to this big moment where I realized, wow, like I woke up to see this life in front of me that was completely fake. It was like, wow, this is not what I want. This isn't, yes, it's all the things that I've hit all the goals I wanted, and that's great. But I feel absolutely nothing inside. And I think I was drinking between 6 and 8 drinks a night, smoking weed every single day, and just like numbing myself out to try to avoid the amount of screaming that my body was yelling out. So when I kind of had that realization, I had a call it a whole awakening, if you will. I don't want to bore everybody with the whole story of it, but essentially left everything behind, left that life behind, moved out to Austin, Texas to kind of start my own like discovery of who the heck am I, why am I on planet Earth, and how am I meant to bring it to the world in an authentic way that matters to me. And few years later, here I am helping people with emotional fitness, primarily because I had to teach myself how to use my own emotions at the highest level to reconnect my heart to my brain, if that makes sense.
It makes so much sense. And I don't think this audience would be bored by the whole story anyway. But we have so much other stuff to keep moving through, I think, in this podcast. It's I just wanted to say that it's like such a common experience. And it's not common in like, oh yeah, like everyone feels that. It's common in the sense that it is so human to not want to feel the hard emotions, right? And then because we're not taught how to use them, how to feel, we're not taught that it's okay to feel these big emotions, right? From especially our generation. I always assume everyone's the same age as me. We look similar.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure
was
we are.
born in 1984. Um,
Got you.
right. So that, like our generation, I'm millennial, Gen X before us, even boomers before them, like we were taught, like you said, like it has to be good. You should be fine. You should be good. If you're not feeling good and you're having a tantrum, then you need to go do that somewhere else.
Mhm.
Right. And we're not tolerating that kind
Mhm.
of emotional expression. And all that does is, like you said, disconnect us from our body.
Yep.
And it forces us to, I mean, the other thing that we um, go through is dissociation,
Yes.
right? We dissociate from what we're actually feeling. And
Mhm.
that's when you were talking about, drinking 6 to 8 drinks a night. That was that was me in like 2019, 2020 as well. Not quite that much, but I'm like two to three glasses of bourbon a night. Like it's a lot for a
Yep.
small woman. And it was all numbing. It was
Yep.
completely to numb what was going on at work. The thing that like that same, like I had to numb myself in order to be able to go and do what I was, supposed to be doing at work, and to be in that environment. And what's crazy is that it wasn't technically like a horrible abusive environment. There was stuff about it that was not good, but it was like from the outside. Like it should be fine. You should be able to deal with this. Everything's okay. Like it's not that bad. And
Yeah.
yet it felt so bad in my body,
Yes.
right? That I had to get away from it somehow.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, being on the other side of that at this point, it's like I have so much compassion for people who are experiencing that. Um, but what you wanted to focus on was that feeling of anger. So I want to hear some of that. What was your experience of tapping into or maybe allowing yourself to experience anger for the first time? Like what came up for you with that?
Yeah, it was anger is one of those emotions that I think more than any emotion really, it's like we're all taught that that's a super not okay thing to express. It means that you're off the hinges or you're out of control or there's that saying like whoever gets angry is actually hiding the fact that they're wrong or something. So there's so much like there's so much energy behind making anger incorrect. And I was in that environment. I was in a marriage that was very abusive, and it just wasn't supportive for either party, and so there was a lot of anger being thrown around, and anger in those instances, although it had really wonderful and important messages for each of us to hear. Neither of us could hear it because both of us were both using anger in a malicious way, but also were judging anger at the same time, not listening for what was underneath. So, in the beginning, when I was beginning to play with different emotions and process them, I remember, when in the beginning of my journey, when I was completely disconnected from my body and then starting to create the connection, I didn't have control over what emotions would come up. It was like, okay, we're going to connect this wire. Oh, that's a loud sound. It's kind of like if you're messing on the dials with if you've ever been on stage with a microphone and the microphone's turned up way too high by mistake and you talk in it and it's like boom and everyone can hear you and you're like, oh, okay. And you try to adjust the distance from your face. It's kind of the same thing when you start attaching to your emotions. You connect a couple things, and all of a sudden there's this big thing that comes up. You're like, what the heck is that? That seems overwhelming. Okay, turn that off, or whatever it might be. And that's how anger was, because I remember I began to start allowing myself to feel and integrating some of my emotional fitness practices. And then anger would come up, and the first judgment was, oh, this is wrong.
Mm,
This isn't supposed to be felt. This means that I'm losing control here. Or the thoughts that I would get angry about, I would judge those thoughts and not allow them to flow. So a lot of the times we think that our thoughts are what generate our emotions, but actually I believe it's the other way around. I believe it's our actual emotional state that generates the thoughts and generates the picture of the world around us. So if I'm in an anxious state, as an example, I'm going to have a lot of anxious thoughts. If I'm in an angry state, I'm going to have a lot of angry thoughts. And so but a lot of times when we feel emotions, it happens at the same time. You feel the emotion and you hear the thought at the same time. The thought's typically more clear. People typically have a better relationship with their thoughts than they do with their emotions. So they hear these thoughts that come through and they go, oh, well, that doesn't fit my narrative, or that doesn't fit my identity, or that doesn't fit my belief systems about what I should or should not be thinking, or what is or is not possible. Or is not okay to say. So when I would connect to anger and I would hear thoughts like that person betrayed me, that thought isn't a thought that makes sense. Because if we think about it logically, we live in a very quote unquote enlightened society today where we're like, oh, no, that's not the right way to think about it. No one has betrayed me ever. It's all a mirror and it's all positive thinking. And that is where we want to get. But the first part of the process is to allow whatever thought comes through as a result of the emotion, because the truth is that's just something that's been in there waiting to come out and needs to be expressed. And if it's not expressed, it remains inside of the body, literally tearing the body apart like a cancer. The word expression, if you break it apart, X out, press, push, to push out. Every emotion is meant to be expressed so that it can release, leave the body, and then make space for something new, like a river instead of a lake. And so in the beginning, as I was experiencing anger, it would come through and I would hear these thoughts that didn't make sense, very blamey type thoughts, very quote unquote low vibrational thoughts. And my first instinct was to constantly reframe those thoughts and try to take the high road in every one of those situations. But then the problem is that I would then take the high road, and then a week later something would trigger me, and then all of a sudden the anger would come up, and I'm like, and then I'd have to like try to reframe, and then the reframe wouldn't work, and all of a sudden now I'm just off the rocker angry. I don't know if you've ever had that before, where all of a sudden the anger gets so intense you lose control, and all of a sudden you become very angry, and it can't be stopped until you calm yourself down. So that was what it was in the beginning. But then after a while, that process, this mindset trick of reframe your thoughts, and don't allow yourself to feel certain low vibrational emotions, that consistently didn't work enough so that I was like, okay, I got to try something else. I'm a scientist by nature. I love to try something. If that doesn't work, try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. And so then I just began to look for avenues of ways to authentically allow myself to express anger. Like, where can I channel? I asked the question, where can I channel this? Where can I put this? I don't want to put this emotion onto other people. That doesn't feel right. But how can I take this emotion and put it into something? And the very first place that I began to learn how to express anger was actually at the gym, which is why one of the things where the idea of calling it emotional fitness came in, is because the gym taught me so much about how to express certain emotions. And I noticed that example, if there was a certain amount of weight that was above my body that my body did not want to lift up, or I didn't want to, or it started to believe, oh, we can't lift this one more time. I began to notice that the exact energy that I needed to be able to get that weight off my body was typically anger. It was some type of, no, you get the hell off this body right the F now. And it would come right off. But then when there's this other phrase in emotional work that I really love, that once you lift the dam, the water starts to flow. So the dam lifting was me, pushing the weight off and getting angry to get it off my body. And then right after, I noticed all of a sudden like other stuff would come through, like sadness and despair and tears and all these things. And I'm in the gym crying and I'm like, why I can't be doing this? This is ridiculous. But it was a natural part of the process where I lifted the anger dam and all of a sudden the other stuff started to flow. So that was a huge revelation for me of like, okay, there's ways to healthily experience this and express this, but also once anger is expressed, I started to notice all these insights would come in. I would finally have the ability to forgive someone that needed to be forgiven, or let go of something that needed to be let go of that otherwise was impossible to let go of, or decide to take a new action in my business or a new action in my life that otherwise I would have told myself that's impossible, or I can't do that, that's not aligned with my values, not aligned with my whatever. And so that was kind of the first place where I learned how to start moving anger and using it for a purpose, discovering it could be used for purposes greater than just being repressed like a soda bottle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many things were flowing as you were talking. I just again, I so identify um with a lot of what you're sharing, and especially, feeling that feeling the mindset work does not get you through the body work. It doesn't get you connected. Um, some people call that somatic healing or somatic work now.
Yep.
Um, but really, like, yeah, reframing your thoughts. I am in agreement with you there. I think not even I think there's research showing, right, that the emotions are kind of the instinct, right? And then your thoughts tell you, oh, they're trying to make sense of that instinctual feeling
Yes.
that you're moving from, right?
Yes.
Um, and I have had that exact experience of, okay, I need to allow. It's when we stop holding it back, when we, like you said, I love um, that example of the dam, right? When we lift the dam, we don't hold back whatever it is that's coming up. That trigger is coming up for a reason. When you follow it, that's what leads to so much other expression. I loved that too, the expression, like getting it out, pushing it out. Like it's exactly what it feels like and what it is. I love that. Thank you for that reframe there. But what I wanted to say really was what I have found as I have done that, as I have followed the triggers, as I have allowed, right? Like this thing is coming up, I'm not going to hold back. Um, whether that was anger, I had a harder time, I would say, connecting with anger. I have worked specifically on that quite a few different times. It very quickly moves to sadness for me. When
Hmm.
I like that dam of anger is actually pretty shallow for me. And when that lifts,
Yeah.
it's like the way that it felt for me was that it felt like an ocean of grief
Yes.
is what was truly underneath a lot of the anger. Which again, so that was sometimes that was hard for me. I've had different coaches that were like trying to like push me not push me into anger, but like dive into it further and further. And like that, there wasn't a lot of it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really like, it was this, again, this ocean of sadness, this ocean of grief
Yes.
that would come. And that was the one for me that was like, if I start crying, I'm never going to stop.
Yeah.
That was the feeling of like holding all of that back and holding all of that in.
Mm.
Um, but once you express it, once you learn that, oh, it's not going to last forever, right? I'm going to feel this now and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to come out of it. And then, if it comes back up again, I can let that expression, let that come up and out again.
Yeah.
It really, truly does shift the trigger. Like the trigger is gone
Yes.
after you truly allow it to metabolize, to process through.
Yes. Yes, to fully, completely process. Yeah, and there's a lot of the times when it comes to approaching an emotion that we are afraid of expressing or that's really uncomfortable. Because the truth is, like things like anger or shame, despair, guilt, these are not fun emotions to feel. They don't feel good. And so a part of it's social conditioning that we can't feel certain things and express certain things, but another part of it's a very real experience of like no one likes feeling guilty. No one likes feeling shameful. No one likes feeling angry. Some people do. They get jet fuel out of it. But it's like it's not a thing they like to feel. And so there's actually when the nervous system begins to approach something very uncomfortable, some type of uncomfortable experience or an uncomfortable expression, it will typically put in place three different, we'll call it hallucinations or illusions to get us to not feel the thing. The first illusion is the illusion of extremity. This is too much. This is so much that it will kill me. It's so much that it's going to cause damage. So, as an example, is if one is inside of a sauna and that sauna is causing the heart rate to climb up to 160, 107, whatever it is. And the heart rate's going really, really fast. You're sweating a ton and you've only been in there for 10 minutes. And the body says, Hannah, this is way too extreme. You're going to die of dehydration. This is too much. It's going to cause permanent brain damage. You need water immediately. What we do is sometimes we buy into that. We go, oh, you're right. And then we either leave the sauna early before we could get any of the benefits. The minimum amount of time you want to spend in a sauna of 180 degrees is at least 25 minutes to start developing heat shock proteins. But we go, oh, no, 10 minutes is too much, right? But so the illusion of extremity causes us to run away from certain emotions like anger or any level of discomfort. So the key to getting through the illusion of extremity, um, this will sound kind of strange, but the illusion of extremity, what it's activating inside of your body is the not your head's belief, but your heart and body's belief that this thing you're experiencing is so extreme that you are going to die if you keep experiencing it. And so your physical body is likely not going to die, but you might have something emotionally or spiritually within you that is going to die if you allow yourself to experience it. So what's the most important part if we notice whilst we're approaching an uncomfortable experience that's hitting a threshold of discomfort such that our body is starting to say this is too extreme for us to experience, express, etc. It's important for us to be able to say, I'm okay with dying in this moment. And
Mm.
not dying as in like physically dying, but I'm okay with this being, if my body is saying this is so extreme, I'm going to die. It's like, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that. I'm good with that. And that will allow the whatever the body is trying to avoid to be expressed to start moving towards expression. It might express that moment, or we might move to the second illusion, which is the illusion of eternity. So if we get past the illusion of extremity, which is this is too intense for me to experience. If I experience this, I'm going to die. And we say, I'm okay with dying. And the body says, oh, okay, well, that didn't work. The next thing it'll say is, if we experience this or this thing we are experiencing, we're experiencing it forever. If we don't stop this immediately, I'll experience it forever. I'm going to go back to the sauna analogy because it's a really easy one to do. You go into a sauna, you get the appropriate amount of hydration, you set your timer for 25 minutes before you go inside. You're in there, your heart rate's climbing, and your timer hasn't gone off yet. But a part of you begins to be convinced that you might have been in there for longer than 25 minutes. You're like, no, there's no way. I've been in here for so long. This is getting so intense. And what'll happen is your body will physically begin to bend your perception of time to make it feel longer so that you can start to believe you're going to be in there for eternity. And so the way to get through the illusion of eternity, if you're beginning to experience time bending in the experiencing of the uncomfortable emotion, is to the solution to that one is I'm okay with being here forever. It's like I know this is uncomfortable and I accept that this is forever. I accept this is okay. I'll be here forever. That's fine. And then it will allow it to come through. The third one is extreme cases, which I won't go into depth of it, but it's essentially if you get past those two and the sensations of discomfort are so intense, it can lead to actually auditory and visual hallucinations where you start to see and hear things that aren't there. The whole thing with that one is just to remain calm and keep yourself committed to your outcome. But those first two things, it really helps you to get through those really uncomfortable emotions or experiences that your body otherwise would stop you to get through. Because the truth is, especially in emotional fitness, every single thing that we do is connected together. So if you experience physical discomfort and you are wanting to get out of the physical discomfort, the physical discomfort is mirroring back to you some type of emotional discomfort you are also wanting to get out of. They're tied together at the same time. And so if there's a part of us that wants to stop feeling physical pain, that physical pain will also be representative of some type of emotional pain. So if you can stick through the physical pain and you can allow yourself to get through the physical discomfort, you will experience some type of emotional processing from that without question. So being able to be okay with telling your body, I'm okay with dying, telling your body, I'm okay with this lasting for eternity. It allows those things to process so you can fully experience what you're meant to experience on the other end of that expression or that discomfort.
Mm. That brought up a an experience for me of breath work. It was
Yes.
the first time, it's not the first time I had done it, but it was the first time I had done it in a facilitate, like hands-on, like people facilitating breath work. And that, yeah, that will blast through those triggers so fast.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
continue, right? And you have the choice. The second time we did breath work at a retreat, the facilitator, she was wonderful, but she let everyone know that like you are in control of how deep you go at any
Yes.
given time, right? If you feel like you need to like lighten it up, you can do that, but you know that you are in control. You can dive in. And we had two different participants that like used that, right? Like that they're like, "Oh, I'm in control here. I can go deeper. I'm safe."
Yes.
And I've that was an amazing experience, but the first time for me was like, yeah, it like broke open so many things that I didn't know were still there
Yes.
in that with literally with those sensations, right? Of like, especially breath work, you're like, yeah, it's just a very interesting experience of pushing past
Yes.
limits, but in a safe way that's like
Yes.
you're not going, I guess, unless you have very specific, issues that could be exacerbated by breath work. But for the majority of people, you are in a safe container. You are
Yes.
safe to breathe and keep breathing.
Yes. The greatest dividends that we could never imagine come on the other end of peak emotional discomfort. And so breathwork is fantastic at agitating and creating huge levels of discomfort. It's a wonderful example. I'm glad that you brought it up because it does that. It creates that level of discomfort that the body says, we can't do this anymore. This is going to last forever if we keep going. And then it's like, no, we're going to get right through it. And then you do. And then people have those releases. They have those screams. They have those tears. They have those ahas. And all of a sudden they feel incredible. And that's a huge part of what really, if I have to be honest, so what do I do as an emotional fitness trainer? It's just helping people be able to meet the discomfort and get through it. And to be, in a sense, like I'm a bit, I wouldn't say I'm a masochist because I don't do it because I love it, but I do it because I know it helps people. I intentionally put myself through a lot of discomfort such that I can meet people wherever they are, no matter how uncomfortable they are in any journey they're in. And so it's like a lot of the time it's me being able to hold their hand while their system is freaking out. And I'm like, it's okay. I promise you're gonna be all right. I don't know what you're going through because of me being in your body, and I'm not claiming I know what you're going through, but I understand peak levels of discomfort. I've seen it before. I'm here to take care of you while you're doing this. Let's get after it. So that's a lot of the work that I do, especially around when it comes to anger.
Mm. So, like we said at the top of the hour here, you know, being able to harness that anger
Yes.
is really important. So, what is it that you're doing with people that, yeah, like how are you teaching them to harness the anger? What does that mean? Um, what does that mean to you and to your clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it all starts with the foundational, what I've learned now through being able to process anger, but then how do I actually utilize it? Because again, that's a big part is like, how do we not just understand the emotions, which I would argue that's emotional intelligence. Emotional fitness is how do we then utilize the emotions? That's a whole other level. So what I found with anger is that anger creates action. And so if we can intelligently allocate our anger, we can then take action where we want to take action with the amount of action we want to take. So let's say, as an example, it requires 10 units of anger in order to take action. And in front of me, I have 10 topics, each of which I'm angry about. I will then put 1 unit of anger into all 10 of those things. The issue is that it takes 10 units of anger to take action. So now I do nothing about all 10 of these things because there's not even remotely enough anger about any of them to do anything about it. And so how I work with my clients and with audiences on anger is really helping them get clear on what is it that you are most angry about. Not the, because there are many things like I ask often in audiences, will say, how many of you are angry about tons of things? And everybody raises their hand. It's like, I'm angry about so much, it's like, I got so much anger in me. It's like, great. It's probably leading them to not take a lot of action then.
Mm.
And so it's, what are you most angry about? And here's the thing is, the body is very smart. It knows that if you begin to get clear about the thing you're most angry about, and you allow your anger to be allocated strictly for that thing, it knows it's going to take action on that in a whole new level of way. It's going to take an act, it's going to essentially create a lot of change in your life and a lot of movement in your life. And both of those things the body inherently wants to run away from because that creates some level of uncertainty, and our body doesn't like uncertainty. So it'll avoid allocating anger because it knows if I do allocate anger, then I'm going to take action. That's going to change my life. And I don't want to change my life. I like things the way they are. So the big thing is, all right, out of all the 10 things that you're angry about, or 3 things you're angry about, which one angers you the most? So as an example, I was in an intensive, or I was in an experience with a client yesterday, and they this particular person, they have a big passion for empowering women in their sensuality and sexuality. And so when I went to what angers you the most, I was like, oh, I know exactly what's going to come out here. It's going to be about, women not being empowered in their sexuality. And then to my total surprise, this person was like, you know what, I really gets me really angry that people aren't educated on finances. And so they take out all these huge amounts of money on loans and they get 100 grand, 150 grand in debt for school without being educated on what that actually means. And then they walk out and they don't have any actual skills that help them make money. And then they just have 100 grand in debt for the government and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, that is not what I thought you were going to say. Like, that was totally out of left field. And then I was like, okay. What else are you angry about? The other thing I'm angry about is that there are places in the world, even in the United States, that don't have access to clean water, and water is such an essential thing in life, and everyone needs to have access to water. And I was like, yeah, I totally get that. It makes sense. And then they're like, and also, it makes me angry that women don't are discouraged from their sexuality and sensuality. I was like, okay, but here's the challenge: is now we have 3 things that this individual is allocating anger to equally, essentially. And this person was experiencing consistent blocks when it came to taking action on moving forward in their mission and their business to help women empower with their sexuality and sensuality. So I was like, okay. I was like, well, which one are we most angry about? Because you're allowed to be angry about them. But if we can pick the one we know we're the most angry about and allow that to get all of the anger fuel, then we are going to take the most action there. And I said, by the way, if we can find the one that you're the most angry about and allocate all your anger towards that thing, do you think you might be able to impact all the other things you wish to have and see change around as well? This person said, yes. I said, because here's the deal. If we're not taking action on any of these things, none of them get anything done. But if you can make a significant impact in just one of these, the abundance that will come from the impact from just one of these areas will be able to overflow into the other ones. And so we did work there, and she then went into this, okay, well, it's definitely the sexuality thing. I said, great, awesome. So that's good. I was like, but then it was like, well, but I'm angry that children get discouraged because their parents have unhealthy relationships. So the parents discourage the kids. I'm like, okay, great. So now we've got 2 more dynamics. Are you more angry about adults having it taken away or children having it taken away? And then children includes men and women. So do you feel more anger when men have it taken away or when women have it taken away? So we had 4 variables of which anger could be allocated to. And when we went through each of them, She said, "No, I'm the most angry about women having it taken away." I said, "Got it." And you could feel it. You could feel it in her system. She's like, "No, that really gets me angry." And I was like, "Amazing." So I was like, "So if you allowed yourself to not focus so much of that energy on all these other places, but really on just this one, how much more would you be willing to do to make that happen?" And she's like, "Oh, I'd be willing to do anything." I was like, "Exactly." So for myself, like one thing that drives me is it makes me very angry and also very sad is the homelessness problem in the United States. It blows my mind that we have people in the United States who have more billions in their bank account than they do alive family members. And in that country, we still have people who are left alone on the streets without resources, without help, where people will pass them by with $5 in their pocket, but they'll pretend that homeless person doesn't exist because they don't want to acknowledge the fact that, or they want to pretend that they need that $5 more than that homeless person needs it. And they don't want to acknowledge that homeless person's existence. And that to me drives me absolutely insane. It breaks my heart. But what makes me more angry and something that I know that I'm more equipped in my vessel to be able to impact is within the coaching industry. There's also something that makes me really angry, which is that there are tons and tons of people in the coaching industry who have bought into this idea of um, trying to use the coaching industry as a way to become remote and make lots of money. When the truth is, the coaching industry is one of the most sacred service-based professions on planet Earth. But many people have said, no, I want to be financially free. So I'm going to offer very little service, but charge lots of money because I'm worth making lots of money, even though I'm giving very little service. And that drives me absolutely up a wall. I can't stand it. And so the mission there is to elevate the standard for service within the coaching industry by example, such that it completely transforms the value proposition within that industry. That way, people who it's only those who are dedicated to the highest levels of service that are actually able to make the income and do things right in that industry. So that's the thing that really like gets on my nerves. And for me, it's like, okay, if I get fantastic at that, if I run events with 10,000 people, which that is the intention down the road, and we're doing millions of dollars in business in a matter of a weekend. Easily, we could be using some of those profits to be able to fund projects to get people off the streets. And that gets me really excited.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I mean by an intelligent allocation of anger. Allowing it's okay to be angry about multiple things, but where do you allow the anger to flow? Where do you allow yourself to let it because anger will build up in your body over time, like a battery, if you will. And if you plug that battery into 15 things, then it's not going to do much. But if you plug that battery into one thing and you charge that one thing, it can significantly impact every area of your life. So that's what I teach on anger.
Mm, that is just such a good example of what I what I work with people on with, again, building their business and having that impact, right? There's what I'm hearing and what you're saying, and it actually it's reminiscent of a conversation. I think this one was posted last week, actually, talking about, people who are trying to kind of get to the finish line faster, just trying to like skip the process, go straight to the results, all
Yes.
of that. Like, how do we just get past all of that when it's in this process of building, in this process of knowing yourself, in this process of going through taking the action, um, that you get to connect with yourself, with others, and like really truly understand where the impact that you want to make will go. Because um, it's not a matter of, like you said, like giving as little as possible, taking as much as possible from that. I think a lot of us have um, seen that, the get rich quick schemes. I mean, I'm in the financial industry, so I hear that all the time,
All the
right?
time.
Like,
Yeah,
what,
I'm
yeah,
sure.
like, how do I make the most money the most quickly and the ease? I'm like,
Yeah.
Consistency over time is really, that's the only secret, is consistency over time in whatever you're doing.
Yep.
Um, Sometimes you get a lucky break. Sometimes, things move a little faster than you were expecting. But for most people, it's about consistent action over time. And
Yep.
what I'm really hearing from you is um, really like funneling that passion, because anger, the way that you're describing it to me also sounds like fire, like passion.
Yes.
Like the where is your strongest energy going,
Yes.
and you want to align your actions, your time. This is the way I teach it. You want to align your time and your money
Yes.
towards that thing where you're like your energy is like just really, really pointing you to flow.
Yes. Yes. The there was a I can't take credit for this one. This is a Tony Robbins quote, but essentially what Tony has said, and I really resonate with it quite a bit, is that passion is the combination of anger and love. That anger on its own is this big hot ball of energy, like the sun. It's kind of multi-directional and it's a lot of energy, a lot of power, very hot. But love is like a focusing lens. It takes that energy, that huge amount of energy, and focuses it into a single direction that can be used for something. And that process is what he says that's what passion is. So yes, very much so. The because the process of if we were to use that same metaphor, if I allow myself to be angry about 100 different things, then I'm just being angry. But if I allow myself to allocate that anger appropriately in a particular direction, it transforms into passion. So
Hmm.
yes, I love the way that you reframe that. It's very helpful.
Yeah, that because that was going to be my next question was, I mean, one of the things that um, I connect with anger, and I know it's not everyone, but I know there are a good amount of people who have experienced this, is that, I mean, I grew up in a house that was full of anger,
Mm,
where anger was expressed in a way that was extremely traumatizing
mm,
as a
mm,
child, right? And um, that expression that was uncontrolled,
mm,
un um, not apologized for,
mm,
right? Never repaired
mhm,
from. It was
mhm.
just like, nope, that's just how it goes, right? But really only at home, not outside, right? So there's all of those same messages of like other people aren't supposed to know how angry things are at
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
There's I've seen, experienced that expression of anger as well,
Mm,
where it just spills out onto everything.
yeah,
And so that going from either those are the two types that people can really experience, right? It's either like there was no anger, they saw no anger, their parents never expressed
yeah,
anything, any discomfort
yeah,
whatsoever, even though there was a lot.
yeah,
Or there's this other side of like, yeah, it was always, that was the only emotion that was expressed. But I wasn't allowed to be angry, but my dad was.
yeah.
And so that was, there was that block as well. So reframing anger into like, how do you use it in a way that is productive? How do you channel it in a way that doesn't hurt everyone around you?
Mhm.
Right? Doesn't have you know, people aren't getting catching strays from friendly fire. Like that's not what's happening. I think that is another facet to this conversation of how we see, experience, and metabolize that anger as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. The and for anybody, and so like one of my and as like a tip on this one because I hear that part where anger can sometimes just be like coming out like a loose cannon all over the place and it can hurt people. Truly, I believe this to be the case is that um, physical exercise. I know this will seem so like out of left, not out of left field, but it's like people don't like to hear this, but I really believe it to be true. When we experience something that is physically demanding and elicits some type of discomfort or pain response in the body, that pain response, it becomes a channel, as you put it. It becomes a channel for anger to be able to express healthily. Again, anger creates action. Anger also, in the right context, can create growth. So on one side of the coin, anger can create destruction. On the other side of the coin, it can create growth if it's channeled in the appropriate place. And so whether someone likes rock climbing, biking, lifting, running, swimming, anything that is going to put them in a position where they are constantly at odds with a force that is asking them the question, can you handle this? Can you handle this? Can you handle this? And they're constantly being questioned in that, and they have to access within themselves that deep sense of yes, I can, and then they go do it, is an incredibly healthy way to process anger. And this is just my personal preference. That I don't claim to be right on these things. Yeah, I'm not God or some deity here, but so I don't have the right answers on all things always. But when it comes to anger, my personal preferences, I don't turn that on anybody. I'll turn passion towards calling someone forth to something more than what they're currently being. But again, all out of love and all out of care, not out of like projection or you should do better because you're not doing enough. Not that kind of a thing. Like anger to me is something that if one is going to express it or experience it or process it, it's best to be processed between you, yourself, and if you have a relationship with the higher power, with that higher power. Um, I believe that's the quote unquote most healthy place to process it, in my opinion. And that's again, that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that's fact.
Mm. It's an important thing though. I mean, I know for me, a lot of that I did powerlifting for many years. I ran for many years. Right, I like the physical aspects, right? What I noticed when I was lifting, especially, I went through some super uh, hard emotional times while I was powerlifting for a while, and what I noticed was that I was not as strong when I was really angry or really, especially sad, but like
Yeah.
when I was having like those emotions, um lifting was not the thing. It was very interesting. Like
Mm,
I just needed a different outlet.
mm,
Um where lifting for me was like a happy place. And not that
mm,
I had to be happy, but it was like if I approached it with this, an air of excitement,
mm,
and like kind of like that, almost like the passion piece, more of like oh, I'm gonna get it this time, right? Or like going for a PR, or like, can I do this? Can I try? Like digging deep was more about finding that um the excitement of going towards
yes.
something.
Yes.
Yeah, and running was a little bit of that too, but I did use running to process a lot more of that, like the heavy stuff,
Yeah.
and that worked really well for me.
Mm,
I have very, very specific memories of like visual and like feeling I can like put myself right back into that place of I was running, I was right here when I had this breakthrough, when I had this, emotional
yeah.
thing. It's very, very interesting.
Yes. Like that. You're killing it with the emotional fitness. You're already doing it all a bunch on your own.
So apparently that's what I was doing. I didn't know it. But I also had just really wonderful mentors and coaches through that period as well, because like we said earlier, it can be your body and your brain will be trying to tell you that you're gonna die.
Yes.
You can't experience this. It's too much. It's too hard.
Yes.
Back off. Like,
Yes.
and if you don't have someone there to help you through that,
Yeah.
most yeah, I'll just say that. I don't have a statistic, but I would say that most people don't go through that if they don't have the support or like a very, very, very strong why as
Yeah.
to why they're going to get through it.
Yeah.
So
That was
having that support, having that person there, or people or group, or if it's a retreat or if it's something that's helping you get through. No, I'm going to survive this. These other people are surviving it. I'm going to survive it. That makes such a big difference.
Yes, absolutely. Especially, yeah, I mean, when we've been avoiding the things we've been avoiding for a reason, right? So it's like if we are confronted with a thing that we've been avoiding for the last 15 years by ourselves, there's not a high likelihood that we're going to get through that on our own. And I love what you said about the why piece, because truthfully, like it wasn't until I had really connected to what my why was in life before I was able to get through some of the most uncomfortable things in the world. So I really love that you shared that because I believe that to be true. It's very helpful for you to frame it that way. But yeah, having someone there in those moments is definitely super supportive.
Yeah. So with that, I feel we could literally like just dive into another like section and talk more about this because there's so much. But being respectful of time here, I want people to know how to reach out to you. I want how can they find you? What do you have coming up? In case this really resonated for them and they're ready for that next level of emotional fitness of, knowing that they've been holding back, not performing at their best, not necessarily, you know, being able to tap in and utilize all their potential in this way. How can they get a hold of you?
That's great. Yeah, thank you for that. So really it's two things. One, there's I'm on social media pretty frequently on Instagram and Facebook. So my Instagram is probably the best place to get a hold of me, which is just my last name. It's just Muellegger, Muellegger. And if this resonates with you, if you're curious about emotional fitness, or if you have questions, like you can always reach out. I'm always answering DMs there and always communicating with people. I'm very open and available and free with how I communicate. I don't gatekeep. I'm not here to funnel anybody. And also, I'm in a place in my career right now where I've got enough availability that if someone says, "Hey, I would really love to hop on a call with you to like have a discussion about something that's really bothering me," I have that kind of availability to do that. There's a kind of a philosophy that I follow that to me it's I don't want to convince anyone to work with me. I don't want to sell anyone to work with me. How I work is I will serve. I'll take care of somebody, and through the service of working with them, through demonstration of what I do, usually they will know and I will know very easily if this is the right fit to work or not. So, all this to say that if someone has questions, curiosities, or wants to go deeper, they can always reach out to me on Instagram or even on Facebook and be like, "Hey man, I really liked this episode of this podcast and I have some questions and some things I'm struggling with on just on emotional processing in general. Would you be open to a conversation?" I'm like, "Always, absolutely." So that's one way to get a hold of me. And then the other way is that I actually have an event that's going to be happening on Saturday the 14th. It's not on the emotional fitness side of things. So one of the things that I did that I developed over time was a skill set in online business strategy. And it was because for the first couple of years of running my own coaching business, I was like, man, how the heck do I get an intangible promise out to people such that they understand what it is, such that they want to buy it? And that was a very difficult thing to do in the beginning. And so just out of one of the things that I offer totally for free is an event that I call my online business clarifier, where we essentially take these 6 essential areas of what it takes to make any business work with messaging, with sales, etc. So that even if you have a business that has an intangible promise all the way to tangible promise, these principles remain the same. Where we take people through a free event to clarify all those pieces for them, for their business, so they can be more effective with their messaging and all that good stuff. And that happens on Saturday the 14th, and it's from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Time on Saturday the 14th. So that's something that people can also check out. And if you're curious about that, you can send me a message. It's totally free to attend, totally virtual, so you can attend from anywhere in the world.
I love that. And that'll be June 14th, 2025.
That's correct. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
timestamp.
Yeah, yeah. Saturday, June 14th, 2025. For those of you who are, if you listen later, then you can find the next one, but that's the next one that's happening.
Excellent. Well, all of your contact information is down in the show notes if anyone wants to grab it from there. And s- truly, like learning to process my emotions um, personally, the journey that I went through to learn to process my emotions, to hold space for my own emotions has been the thing that has allowed me to level up the most and with the most ease, with the most happiness, with the most um truly with the most joy, because when you are able to hold space and process your own deep guilt, shame, anger, sadness, grief, when you can hold space for that within yourself and experience it, the other side of the spectrum of joy, peace, happiness, ecstasy, all of that becomes available, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
it really, really, truly is such an important key to unlocking that the ability to experience more joy. So, Alan, thank you so much for coming and having this conversation with me. I, I feel like there's absolutely more to talk about, so I might have to stay tuned for part two.
Hey, I'm always down for more conversations about this stuff. Thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your inquisitive nature, and also for the work that you've done in your life. It's so clear, especially with how you're communicating about the emotional concepts and your own journey around processing. It's really clear that you've done a lot of really powerful work around it, and that requires. There's a phrase that I say to my clients often. It's like you have to love something more than you love your own bullshit. And so,
Good.
in order to break through things like that, and truly one of the core things in being able to process emotions is connecting something that you love more than you love your own BS, and it takes a huge heart to do, and it's very clear that you either have found that or are finding that every single day. And I just really acknowledge you for how you consistently show up in your life for the people you show up for, and consistently accessing that higher reason why you do what you do, because it's really powerful and really apparent immediately in talking to you.
Mm. Thank you. I received that with my whole heart. Um, I really appreciate it. Mm.
Mhm.
Thank you. And again, if anyone wants to connect further, look in the show notes because this has been such an amazing conversation, and I hope everyone who is supposed to hear this gets to hear it and start to do this super, super important work. Thank you, Alan.
Welcome.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, at expansiveceo.com and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough, you are enough, and your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.